Now that we know how to come up with the equation of a line, if we know the point and the slope, we'll do a few practice problems here. So this first example, or second, I guess, if you've watched my previous video, is requiring us to write the equation of the line that goes through the point -2, 5 and has a slope of 3. So again, I have students start this problem by putting a variable point above the particular point we're given, calculate the slope between the variable point and the numerical point, and setting it equal to this slope of 3, because we know that if this point xy is on the line, then the slope between it and -2, 5 has to equal 3. And so students should come to the conclusion that the slope would be y minus 5 divided by x minus -2. A lot of students forget one of these minuses down here because they see the minus in front of the -2 and they kind of just copy it down. But don't forget that the first minus is a result of the slope calculation. That second one is a part of that number 2. We need this to equal 3. And so in a sense, we have an equation written down on the page. But two things we often change. One is that when you minus a negative, that results in the number being a positive. So we very rarely leave that as x minus -2. Although it's important to know that that's where this came from. We put a plus 2. And secondly, we're going to represent this by isolating the y minus 5 and sort of bringing that x plus 2 over to the right, which again in essence means we just multiplied both sides of this equation by the quantity x plus 2. This way of representing a line, it has a name. I don't really get too bogged down in enforcing or making sure my students know the names of everything. But in this case, knowing the name of this is kind of interesting because its name is completely determined by what we know about the line when we have this equation. It's called point-slope form. And the reason is because it tells us those two things. It tells us a point. In other words, I know just by looking at this equation, if this was given to me first, I would know immediately that, well, the point -2, 5 is on this line, and that line has a slope of 3. So that's why it's called point-slope form. In the second example, I'm going to do it by not going back to this idea of introducing a variable point. What I'm going to do is just kind of see if we can go right to this form immediately. So since a line in point-slope form will always look the same in terms of structure, what I might have students do is kind of get a representation like this down first. And again, after they have some practice, they can sort of look at this problem and say, well, I know the x-coordinate is an 8, so that must go there. I know the y-coordinate is a -4, so that must go there. And I know the slope is -1/5. And so as students get better and better at this, they can arrive right at this answer immediately. Perhaps changing this y minus a -4 into y plus 4. And then representing their final answer like this. So there's how you'd write an equation if you know a point and a slope.